Welcome into 11 Personnel, Nick Roush and Adam Luckett, rumbling, bumbling, stumbling through January, our first podcast of the official college football offseason, the longest offseason in any sport. It's a damn shame, Luckett, but here's the good thing, is at 11 Personnel, there is no offseason.
That's right.
And in fact, some might even say this is where this is where we're at our best.
Yeah, some might call that the wheelhouse, right? The good thing with football now is it never stops, right? Transfer portal, recruiting, high school recruiting, goes right into spring practice. Then you got the summer camps, summer recruiting, leads right into fall camp season. Do it all over again. And so, yeah, we're not going anywhere. We'll be here nonstop throughout the off season to cover everything. We've got a Liam Coen press conference tomorrow on Thursday as we record this podcast today on Wednesday afternoon. So, yeah, nonstop action here moving forward. We still got a window of a week, Nick, till the portal closes this window. So, transfers aren't done yet, but for the most part, I think Kentucky's probably done adding guys.
Yes.
But, yeah, we're entering – I would say probably we're about to enter the slowest point of the offseason.
The slowest, like, 3 weeks too, because it does kind of kick back up.
We'll have junior days and some recruiting stuff the 21st and the 28th, but with the way Kentucky's keeping a tight lid on things, there's not going to be, I don't think, too much leak out unless players are doing interviews. If players don't do interviews, we're not going to know much.
I mean,
and so that's kind of where we're at right now.
Like right now, it's unfortunate as a recruiting reporter that like your old reliables, your easy access, they have become much more tight-lipped over there at the University of Kentucky. But we will get a couple big recruiting weekends, like you said, for that Texas A&M game on the 20-something. We'll get one for Kansas as well.
Yeah. The next big thing is really the Super Bowl commercial after Coen.
And after Wilcox.
Yeah,
Jamarion Wilcox is he put it out there that the decision is going to happen Friday. So, Luckett, are you confident that it's going to happen Friday night?
I feel like I'm going to the roulette table.
Well,
I think Red's coming up, but it could not come up, and so that's where I'm at right now. I think there's a good chance it probably finally happens here on Friday. I'm assuming it's going to be in the evening time.
Yes.
And the Big Blue Nation could use that right now. Things aren't great after last night, and so we could use a nice little buzz there getting Wilcox. That would be nice for everybody.
Yeah, the Coen stream of consciousness will be nice as well. But one thing you know what? Screw it. Let's just get right into it. You mentioned roulette. You are going to a bachelor party this weekend in Las Vegas. I have never been to Las Vegas.
You're missing out, man.
Yeah.
It is made for people like you, Nick. You would have a ball there.
So what's your game of choice out there? Or are you just sit at the sports book and that's where most of your investment's going to be?
Craps is my favorite table game.
Okay.
I could, when things are going well, craps, there's nothing more fun. But you can lose money fast playing craps. So you have to be a little cautious. But I've had times where I've hit, Nick, like I've been on a craps table for 10 hours, won a couple grand. So, and when you're going like that, like the best thing about Vegas and the worst thing is like time is like there's no time. Like you're just time isn't borrowed. Time just doesn't exist.
You're a prisoner of the moment.
And so you're just in there and you don't know what time it is, this or that. It's bright on the casino floor. You look up, no one else is left at the craps table. You look at your clock, it's like 4:30 in the morning. You're like, it doesn't feel like 4:30 in the morning. Like, let's go do something. So that is I would say that's my favorite table game. And then like obviously sportsbook. That is my wheelhouse, and this is good. And that's why we're going for this weekend. It's because the Wildcard Weekend. So
Super Wildcard, yeah.
It should be a pretty fun time.
6 games.
And actually going to a hockey game, Nick. I've never been to a professional hockey game. We're going Thursday night, so pretty excited about that.
That'll be fun too, because like the theatrics that they do pregame
Yeah.
look
Mhm.
awesome. Like every time I see their intro, I'm like, that looks a ton of fun. I'm excited that it also has motivated me that I'm in charge of planning a bachelor party, and I've just got to just knuckle down and do it for the summer. So you've motivated me. I've only played craps once, and I was actually it was pre-kids, might even be pre-marriage. But my wife and I were visiting some friends in Cincinnati, and she got after it a little too hard during the pregame. So I just went with uh, her high school friend and husband to the casino. I had never played craps before, so they were like, "Listen, we're gonna pool our money together. You'll be the lucky one because you never played before, and I'll just kind of show you the way."
Yeah.
I don't really remember how like
That's how it worked for me. It took I have to I haven't played craps in a couple years, so I have to all right, this is this is that. But
yeah, you know the
once you get into it, it all makes sense. But there
because you
is a
have the
lot of moving
pass line,
parts. Yeah.
right? Is it
Yeah.
yeah, isn't
Pass
that a
line.
thing? And then sometimes seven's bad, sometimes it's good. Sixes and
I
eights
mean,
are
you can bet on what people will roll. You can bet on
yeah, and that's a
the come
little
line, the pass line.
yeah.
There's a lot. There's a lot there that you can get overwhelmed. But if you're doing it right, like last time we went, my brother's girlfriend is now fiance. She rolled dice for I'm not kidding you, for almost 2 hours. I mean, they were switching out. They changed the dice 100 times. They were switching out people that worked the table. Pit bosses, pit bosses, pit boss came over. I mean, I'm pretty sure they were watching us in the sky there at Treasure Island, and we did a number on that table.
That's awesome. Well, I hope y'all win some money this weekend. Luckett, while we're talking about Super Wildcard, uh, is it bad that I'm worried about the quality of games? Like we've got two 10-point.
The quarterbacks in this round does make you worrisome a little bit.
Tua's out, right? Lamar might be out as well. They said he hasn't like practiced at all still. So right
Yeah,
now,
he's not
Niners
playing.
are yeah. So we got Niners are 9.5-point favorites over Geno Smith. We also have the Dolphins are 13-point dogs now. That moved all the way down to that Tua's out. 13 points. Sheesh. Bengals are 8-point favorites. Like some
That's
huge,
going to keep
huge
growing too.
numbers. Yeah. So what do you make of this? Is there a way that you are looking to play? Because like, I mean the chalk looks. I hate saying the chalk looks nice, but like as much as we've dogged the Vikings, aren't they better than the Giants? Right?
Yeah, the
Like
problem is didn't they play like Christmas Eve or something like that? It was in Minnesota, and the Vikings needed like a 63-yard field goal at the Horn to win. So we've seen that game, and that's where the number is. It's right on 3.
mm-hmm.
To me, like you got 2 games here, right? With the Ravens, Bengals, Seahawks, Niners, divisional games. Third time they've played these teams. They know each other very, very, very well. And you're laying almost 10 points, the Niners and the Bengals. That Bengals line is going to keep growing because Lamar, I don't think he's playing. Huntley didn't practice today. And so I read somebody said somewhere that the line with Lamar is going to be right around 5.5. The line with Huntley would be 8.5, and then the line with Anthony Brown would be 10.5. And so you got to watch that. If Huntley's in there, it's going to be right around 8. If not, Brown's going to be right about 10. So you have to just be careful laying that many points in a game like that. And so I think the Seahawks are a little sneaky. I don't think they're going to win, but I could definitely see them hanging with the 49ers. The Ravens just know the Bengals and their defense is really good, so you have to watch that. If they get a couple turnovers, they could be in really good shape to hang around in that football game. But to me, Nick, I'm just really excited to watch Chargers Jaguars.
Yeah.
Because it's Herbert versus Lawrence. Brandon Staley is an absolute wild card over there for the Chargers. Like that's probably my favorite wager this week is laying that small number with the Chargers. Because I think they're really good and their defense is finally healthy. They got Bosa back. Derwin James is in there. But you never know with Staley. I mean, and both these coaches will go for it on 4th down and roll the dice on anywhere on the field. So That makes it very interesting. I think that's going to be a very, very fun game. And I love that because usually they put that 4-5 game, or at least they did with the Bengals last year. They put that at 4. I'm glad they put that in prime time Saturday night because that is a fun quarterback matchup.
And you saw it a week ago. Because I was riding that Jags train as well, just hoping that they would punch their ticket to get in. And Trevor Lawrence.
Jags have had a very fortunate schedule, I think, here down the stretch. You got to give them credit for beating the Cowboys at home, beating the Ravens at home. But when they've played good teams, Nick, they've needed like late comebacks here at home. So you got to think that they're probably going to need that again against the Chargers, and will they be able to get it?
Yeah, and my thing is I feel like our best version of Trevor Lawrence, we've seen flashes here and there, but we basically got our worst version of it, and they still found a way to win. I mean, Zay Jones could not have been more wide open in that end zone, and
that ball's a little tough because you kind of layer it in there, and he did miss on that, no doubt about it.
And it felt like Rich Scangarello was calling plays for them in the red zone. They left so many points on the board there.
Yeah, I think you look at the Chargers. Like, I think Herbert's better than Lawrence right now.
Yeah,
Eckler's better than ETN right now.
Mm-hmm.
Their receiving core is better than the Jaguars right now. I think their defense, since it's healthy, is better. Like, all signs are like the Chargers should win this game, but you don't know with Staley. Staley's just, I mean,
playing his starters last week in the third and fourth quarter, like, what an idiot! You're a dummy.
Yeah, there's no. I mean, I get why coaches want to do it, but there's really, like, you have a playoff spot locked up. You're not getting a home playoff game.
Yeah,
you're going on the road regardless because you didn't win the division. Just, and because they were playing their best football of the year, so I think he wanted to keep that momentum. But there was just, I don't know. To me, you don't need to do that because you risk. You're right. Mike Williams hurt his back. I think he's questionable for Sunday, and that hurts.
Yeah, no doubt. I'm not overly confident in any of them, but I'll probably just do a 17 money line or 6-game money line parlay because, like, it's the freaking playoffs. Let's let it ride. 1 year, Luckett, I got all 4. Or it's 4 in the divisional round, right? 4 games a pop.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah, 4 games total, and I had them all straight up and in a parlay.
6.
And
it's 6 now. It used to be 4.
Okay. I did that 1 year where I got them all right, and I was basically the smartest person that has ever watched a football game ever before in my life. So, like, I feel like you have to just, like, all right, let's make all of our picks, roll the dice, and see what we can come up with. But the lines are a little there's nothing that's just, too, like, all right, you got to hammer this. Like, they're kind of right where you expect them to be. I'll be cheering. I'll have my rooting interest. But I am afraid that, like, Tom Brady beating the Dallas Cowboys is too much of an easy, you know what I mean? Like, that's just everybody's going to expect it, right?
The Cowboys have lost 8 consecutive road playoff games. They have not won a road playoff game since 1995.
That's incredible.
Ain't it? And I also saw stats today.
They're not that good. Like, you should be able to take care of business.
Joe Burrow is a win away from becoming the Bengals' all-time winningest playoff quarterback. He'll have the most wins in franchise history. Past Boomer. Boomer has 3.
That's it?
Yeah.
How many times did Palmer go to the playoffs, too? He went to like 5 and probably won 1 game?
He went to 2.
Oh, it was Dalton who went to a bunch.
And then Dalton they went like 4 years in a row.
And lost that Saturday wildcard game a bunch.
Yeah.
But either way, those games will be exciting. I wish I had better insight tips to give. But I'm just looking forward to having the football because I want to flush out that noon Tennessee game out of my system as quickly as possible. I just can't stomach it. I can't. I hate him. I hate him so much. I hate that Rick Barnes has Cal's number. But this is a football podcast like it. We don't need to spend our time talking about that stuff right now.
That's right.
Other than saying that DeAndre Square, he might have a future in media because I think he has the best.
That was a good take. That was.
Yeah.
I appreciated that take.
It was.
They all look like jackasses after that.
Exactly. Like, hey, maybe we shouldn't have spent so much time arguing over it. Karma got us.
Yeah. Maybe that's what we needed to in that thing. Both teams come in not stinking, but come in woefully short of expectations.
Both teams stunk.
Yeah.
we can just say.
Well, I will say for Kentucky, like they had moments, like football, like they beat Mississippi State, winning at Florida. Like that's like the equivalent of like Kentucky winning the Champions Classic and then
losing
like
in the finals of like the SEC tournament or
like
something.
sweeping Tennessee in the regular season. Like you do those two things, for the most part, it's going to be a good regular season.
It's like that. Didn't they do that PJ Washington year? Right. This felt like a PJ Washington season where you're just like, eh.
Yeah, they haven't swept Tennessee since I don't think since Barnes has been there. It's been a long time. But yeah, they beat Tennessee in a big game at home, PJs, last year. I can't remember if they won the Champions Classic game to start that year or not.
But now we're hitting the reset button. Liam Coen is officially back. That happened on Tuesday, and we talked about it at length already. Check it out on the KSR YouTube page. I did find it interesting when he did his BBN Tonight interview that he did say, like, we fell short of expectations. It's on everybody. It's on me to get it fixed.
Mm-hmm.
And, like,
that's why he's paid $1.7 million.
Well, and kind of acknowledging, like, yeah, I'm kind of my bad. Like, things wouldn't have been so bad if I didn't dip out when I did last year. So I'm curious what those initial conversations are going to be like, because I know everybody's excited they're going to be excited to see him, but there's also going to be like when he runs into Will Levis in there, Will's going to be like, dude, you kind of boned us, you know, like that. I'm sure there's going to be a little bit of a
but it went so bad that I don't think. I mean, I don't know. I'm not in that locker room, so I don't know what the overall feeling was with that. But there also might be, God, we're just glad this guy's back after last year.
Yeah, true. It does feel like we've discussed between the first time he came back and now the second time where it's officially official. It feels like we've discussed it ad nauseum. So we don't need to spend a ton of time on it. But I do think this is a good time to just kind of reflect on 2023 college football season where, Luckett, I kind of jokingly said it at the Saturday or Monday night as it was happening, but you know, now's a good time for old Greg Sankey to just say, all right, no more divisions. But it does suck that right now the SEC has always been the best, but there's really, no matter what they do, it's going to be awfully hard to dodge the top two dogs. And the top two dogs are so far ahead of everybody else that even in Georgia's seemingly bad year, where, I mean, Kentucky held them to 16 points, but they're still that much better than everybody else. It's just hard to break through that ceiling. And I do feel like what this playoff did, Luckett, is we finally got the inverse of what we had in the past, which was in the past, there was always two and a half teams that were head and shoulders above everybody else. So you got one good semifinal game and a blowout, and then a great championship team.
Yep.
This year, there was one team that was better than everybody else, and then a bunch of other teams kind of in the mix. And Ohio State, they punched above their weight in that semifinal. We got some great semifinal games, and then we got the bad championship. I think in this expanded playoff, it's not going to happen all the time like this, but we're going to get more results.
We're going to get better semifinal matchups in theory.
Exactly. We're going to have better kind of undercards. Like there might be in those first round home playoff games, there's probably going to be a blowout or two, but we're going to have some great semifinals. And I just, unless the Bamas, right, rise to the top in this situation, which I think could have happened this year. Like if we had a 12th teamer this year, it's probably Bama, Georgia in the final. And that could produce a good game. But for the most part, I think that this sort of scenario, I think we're going to get more guys like that dude in the Mississippi State hat screaming at the TV about the committee.
Yeah, to me, Nick, I don't want to sound like old man yells at cloud, but this was my least anticipated national championship game I can remember going into. Just because TCU had a great season. I'm not taking anything away from, but like, did you ever consider TCU like a top 5 team?
I mean, they were always the fifth one, right? They were always that like,
Yeah,
well,
but
look what they've done, but you got to give them credit for their wins, but they never did anything that other than just play like with the horseshoe up their ass, like that was
do you remember like 7 years ago there was that Iowa team that just kept winning and was undefeated,
yeah,
and then
it
they
was the
lost
team.
Michigan State? That's what this TCU team kind of reminded me of.
Mhm.
Like they had a great season, but they weren't. Um, they weren't one of the better teams in the country. Now Michigan threw 2 pick-sixes in a game. If you score 2 defensive touchdowns in a football game, you're probably gonna win. you know, like you're gonna have your odds increase exponentially if you score 1 defensive touchdown, let alone 2. So that happened for them, and they found a way to beat Michigan. And that's really, I think, the big thing here. I think one, the Blue Bloods let Georgia steal one. Like this Georgia team, what they had coming back, they shouldn't have won the title this year. They were starting 7 freshmen, true sophomores on defense. They didn't have like a skill talent superstar. Like they had Brock Bowers, but Brock Bowers took a step back from last year.
Mm-hmm.
Receiver was an issue all year. Creating vertical completions was an issue. O-line was awesome, but those running backs at Georgia, Nick, we've seen a lot better running back combinations at Georgia.
But you do got to give Kirby. Well, I don't know if you would give Kirby credit, but he found Todd Monk. Like Todd Monken.
Yeah, he was their MVP. I thought all year.
Yeah. I mean, some of the stuff he had on those opening, like that first half where they really punched him in the mouth. Like he had a quarterback that could make the reads and take advantage of the schematic stuff that they gave him.
So that was one takeaway. Number 2 was Big Ten. Like it was on the table for a Big Ten national championship. Michigan, Ohio State on the biggest stage. It would have been in the highest rated national championship game ever.
Yeah,
and they
blew it.
They shit their pants on New Year's Eve. Ohio State kind of got the injuries. Really, that was unfortunate for them.
Yeah. Losing Stover and Williams or Harrison, excuse me.
The latter really more important there.
Right.
And you can make an argument. I saw someone tweet this out. If Jamison Williams and Marvin Harrison do not get hurt, Georgia has 0 national championships.
Yeah.
But that's why you got to put yourself in the dance. If you put yourself in the dance enough times, you're eventually going to win it. And the breaks are going to go your way. I think Georgia the breaks went their way, and you just got to, this year, I think Georgia's going to have better teams, but I don't know if they'll ever have a team that has a better season than this one just had. So, congrats to them. I mean, it was a impressive showing, and they just beat the ever-loving tar out of TCU.
Yeah, I felt bad for because if you're a TCU fan, you have to do whatever you can to be at that game on the off chance that you win because you're never going to be back out there.
Just the experience alone.
Yeah, but like to go all the way out to SoFi and then it's raining on you the whole time, even though you're covered.
That's another thing. Why? Like the Rose Bowl is right down the road.
Yeah, it's stupid. Never. And then they're going to Houston next year. What is Houston doing hosting a national championship game?
I don't know why we don't need to play these. I don't get it, but whatever.
Play it in a college. Like I was thinking the same thing too. Like I get SoFi Stadium's this big fancy. You kind of want to show it off, right? But like, are they going to go to the Meadowlands to play a national championship game? Are they going?
They're going to go to Nashville whenever that indoor gets built.
I mean, play it at college football venues. Like that.
I think in hindsight, I think we really messed up here just not locking the national championship into the Rose Bowl every year. We've had a couple of them at the Rose Bowl, and they've been awesome. USC Texas, the most popular. Auburn, Florida State was at the Rose Bowl. And then when they went from the BCS to the playoff, they took them out of the bowl games, and they put them in these pro stadiums.
Wasn't Levi's Stadium one of them too? Like what?
Yeah. One of the Clemson Bamas was out in San Diego.
That was a Clemson blowout one, I think. Yeah. And here's the thing too, like it. You know why they didn't do it? Because those freaking fart sniffers out at the Rose Bowl. Like,
I just think,
it's not the traditional Rose Bowl. We need it to be the traditional where it's Pac-10 versus Big Ten.
And then it sounds like the Final Four in the championship, that's just how it's going to be. They're going to do it that way at 3 different NFL stadiums. I don't like it. we have the Rose Bowl. It's the coolest thing in college football.
Yeah, use it.
We have national championship games there. The best venue should host the national championship game. I don't understand why we're not doing that.
Yeah.
Especially now with bowl games pretty much just being dissolved into nothing. I mean, you had Utah, Penn State in the Rose Bowl, two good teams, but they were ranked 8 and 9 or whatever. Just play the national championship there. Like, what are we doing?
The future of bowl games, I think, is worth discussion because I read something too. Ralph Russo from the AP, who is their big national college football guy. He spoke with the bowl season head honcho, who they have ways. They have ideas on how to make sure that bowl season improves with this change. And the smartest one is they can actually use bowl season as a way to experiment with profit sharing with players. Because that's what's coming down the pike, right? Like, NIL is the first domino before all this TV money starts actually getting to the players, and that's how we pay them with TV money. You can do that with these NIL deals with your bowl games primary sponsorship. Cheez-It did it with, they sponsored both of those bowls in Orlando, the Citrus and the undercard bowl game. And, a kid from each team got sponsored. I think that's the way they want to go about it to prevent opt-outs. And you're not going to prevent them all. But I think there's a difference between Chris Rodriguez playing and Will Levis. Like, you probably don't have enough money to pay Will Levis to play and risk first-round status. But Chris Rodriguez, I'm sure he's got a dollar amount that would suffice. So I think that's a way they can go. But the bowl season guy did say that we do kind of want to – we don't want to put the cart before the horse just yet to get this rolling. But it is going to change because, the calendar of how it all works, because they're going to be playing. I think they're going to start Army-Navy weekend for the playoff, right? Or the week at.
I don't know if it's either that week or the week after. It's one of those weekends in December.
Yeah. So, things just have to change. I did find it when I went back and looked at all the scores, all of the people who complained about ball games, half of them were one-score games, and that was up to 60% during that week where it was like Power 5 games between Christmas and New Year's. We had some great games. Luckett had some horrific beats. But the bowl system, while not perfect, it still is a lot of fun. It's entertaining. People enjoy it. We can make it better when this playoff changes here in last season without the 12-team playoff coming up down here in 2023-24.
Yeah, my overall thought is just there's a lot of changes that have to be made. Number one, to the month of December, like getting some stuff out of that month. And then you have to go from there, and the playoff starts it all, and then going off of the playoff, how they kind of incorporate bowl games and how they can try to get players to want to play in these bowl games, I think is very important moving forward for the sport. But but that bowl games aren't going anywhere. They're going to be played, even if it's these glorified exhibition games we saw in a few contests this year. One was Kentucky included.
Yep.
Because people watch them, man. Like a couple million people watch that Music City Bowl.
Crazy.
And so it just people that's what people like. They're just really, really popular for whatever reason, and because of that, and they make a lot of money off of them. They are not going away.
The one thing that is probably going to go away, though, you mentioned the changes in December. Greg Sankey, he wants the early signing period out of here. Luckett, you especially have been trumpeting this horn for a while. And I think with Sankey was the guy that needed to say something to make this happen. He's the only one that seems getting a damn thing done in college football. So the fact that he's saying it means that there's a good chance that we could see this coming in the very near future.
Yeah.
If not this next cycle, I can almost guarantee that they're going to have it gone by the time the playoff comes around, because who's going to want to try to sign a class after you play a playoff game?
Yeah, they had that AFCA coaches convention that right around the national championship game. Todd Berry, who's like their spokesperson, even talked about it. He mentioned maybe moving it up. I don't know when.
That sounds like stupid. Like just
Like
go to
having it like
February.
a week after the regular season. That to me that doesn't solve any problems. You're
No.
still in that little window of time. I get why. I think the coaches like having it where it's done, right? I think they like getting to Christmas and everything's done, and then they can just focus on getting ready for, junior recruiting and spring ball and all that. I think they prefer that, but I don't think it makes sense to do it that way. If you're going to do it early, you need to have it in like July before the season starts, and be like, if you have an offer, you can sign right now. You don't have to. And then if you don't sign, you got to wait till February. That makes more sense to me, especially for the players. I think it gives them more power. That there would be a lot of good decisions made. Some will make bad decisions, or some decisions they want back. But I think that's just part of the territory. But either you need to push it in February and do the old school one, which number one I think is better for the sport because it gives it a huge bump in January and February.
Yes.
Like you can lead those 3 weeks leading into it. It's a bigger deal for everyone involved, for the schools, for the players, and for companies like us, Nick. It's big for all of them. But and you get more eyes on it because there's nothing else really going on. Especially if you put it like the week before the Super Bowl when there's a dead week in there on that Wednesday. But I don't know if they want to go back to that. And so somebody's got to make the decision. I mean, Greg Sankey's, we've joked about the commissioner. He kind of is the commissioner of college football at this point. And so I'll be interested to see what he thinks and what he does. I mean, he's going to do what the SEC people are going to talk about, and then they're going to do it. And we'll see how it shakes out.
Yeah, and I understand why they're kind of happy to exhale for a little bit after the new year. But, like, what's 3 off days compared to just not crazy, like a not crazy month of December, right? Like,
Yeah,
because in reality, they're only getting a handful of days off no matter what.
In the athletics story where Nicole Auerbach spoke to Sankey, they mentioned like the transfer portal window, like they can maybe move that, or they don't even know if maybe they'll even do multiple windows anymore, if they'll just open it up again. I mean, that's very much an experiment right now on how they're handling that. So they got to figure that out, and they just got to figure out what works for everybody. I think to me personally, the season ends and then bowl prep, like you don't need anything else. Whether you're bowl prep or for the playoff prep, like you should be focusing on those things. The season isn't over yet. And then you should get into recruiting after that in the coaching carousel. And that's another thing, the carousel they didn't like because the carousel has been pushed up because of this early signing day.
Yeah.
These schools want a head coach in so they can, at least somewhat save a class instead of signing no one.
Right.
So that's pushed everything up. So you got the Louisville and Cincinnati situation.
Mm-hmm.
If you moved things back, they could go through and play that game, and then the coaches could leave. But
I do understand having the portal when you do, because the reason why,
because of mid-year,
not going to add anybody. Like the school year, spring semester, I can't enroll in classes after Friday. So like there is a logistical aspect to it. I know some people ask, well, what about early enrollees? Like you don't need to sign a letter of intent to enroll at a school.
Mm-hmm.
That's not. It's binding, but it's unnecessary.
My point would be it opened on December 1st or whatever, and it went through January 18th. We don't need a 5-week window here for the portal.
It's too long.
We could get all this done in 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Enter the portal, schedule visits over 2 weekends, and go. Especially with Zoom, with all this virtual stuff they're doing now, all these virtual visits, which is how a lot of these things are happening. Like we don't need to be open for 6 weeks. And then like the one they're doing after spring ball, Nick, is open for, I think, a month. It's May 1st to May 31st, I'm pretty sure. That to me, like, you don't need to, the portal doesn't need, like, this doesn't need to be like a 6-week process, at least.
Right, right. Which,
Because
by
most
the
of these
way,
guys, Nick, like you're right, they're making a decision in a week and a half, 2
yeah,
weeks.
what are you waiting on? Like I now it probably does benefit some of the guys where bigger schools maybe swing and miss on some players, and then you rise up their draft boards, if you will.
Right.
Shout out to Kavase Smoke, who just signed with Colorado. That probably wasn't on the table a couple weeks ago, but 1,500-yard rusher. I'm sure he was one of the most productive running backs still left in the transfer portal without a home. He was able to get on there. Bo Allen's going to Georgia Southern. Justin Rogers' tour of the SEC continues. He's going to Alabama this weekend. He's enjoying the recruiting process. You can tell by all the interviews he's doing. That I was shocked and like this, Kobe Albert is like the most. Damn it! Like this never would have happened in the old era, but it's a crowded room and like it just sucks. Like that's just kind of the attrition you dealt with. Zion Childress came along and probably took away the snaps that he thought he was going to get, and now when next year starts, he's safety number 3. Like he's third everywhere. So like I don't necessarily blame him. I mean, he played in 8 or 9 games, but it just sucks losing a blue chip. Like that's a quality depth piece, blue chip player that you're losing just seemingly out of the blue with only a week left to go in this portal window.
Yeah, that stuff's gonna happen in this era. You just kind of gotta prepare for that and keep stacking your roster. There's really not much you can do. But you're right. The safety just a little sneakily became a really loaded position for Kentucky during this season, which is not a bad thing. But there's pros and cons to everything. So this is just a con of that, of some players, of a Jordan Lovett, of a Zion Childress, of an Alex Afari emerging. There's only so many snaps to go around.
Mm-hmm. No, you're exactly right. The other big movement was the addition of Keyshawn Silver, which I've thought feels like it happened 7 weeks ago, but it was actually only like 3
Monday,
days.
Sunday.
Yeah. Which also that's us just being kind of curmudgeons because nobody's talking, and so we didn't even know the guy was on Scoop until after he had already committed. But I saw that and I was like, hey, you found a quality. Like, not only does he have the former recruiting stuff to where it's like, oh, you lose a 5-star, you get a 5-star, everybody's happy. If it does good for the narratives, but for me, it's just like, okay, that's about as good as you can do in the portal when finding replacements. They got one, and they got it this last weekend. Great addition. I'm curious because in our private conversations, you were seemingly hesitant about Silver, but you've come around on him after digging in more. Wow.
Yeah, I just think he's 6'4", 5', 300 and something pounds. He's got good movement skills. He was a basketball player in high school. There was talk of him walking on to the North Carolina basketball team. So there is some real athleticism there. The weight is a big thing. If he can get that weight in check, he can be a productive player for Kentucky. I think for Kentucky, they're 2-gap defensive lines, so really they just need guys to eat up blocks. I mean, essentially, and take up space, especially at that nose tackle position. I think he has the size, length, and body to do that. If he gets his weight in order, gets in shape, you could see him being a good player here. And I think really they just needed one other guy there to compete with Josiah Hayes and Jamari Stinkins. I don't think they needed like an instant, no doubt starter. They just needed somebody to work with. And I think Silver checks those boxes. He's in for the spring. He's big. He can move. You can do something with that. He can play with power. Now, I know like the career at Carolina wasn't great, but they're not developing good players there very often, especially on the defensive side of the ball. They've been kind of a mess since Mack Brown has gotten there. And where Kentucky, I think they've done a pretty good job on the defensive line. Amar Stewart has not been the recruiting king on the staff, but I think he's done a good job developing his players in his room. And so you get Silver in his room, I think, and he checks the boxes I think Kentucky wants. Like they want that length. They want guys that can play with power. I think he can do that, and so I could see him being a guy that could potentially give them snaps next year, and that's really what they need with Hayes, Dinkins, and Silver. It's going to bleed platoon. None of those guys are going to be great, but they don't need somebody to be great. They just need somebody to take up space, hold blocks, and then the other positions is where they're going to need production from.
Yeah, and that's we can get to that later. We've got all a long off season to dissect the depth chart in totality, and really preview the 2023 season. But the off season, it's still young,
and his nickname is Big Country with a K. So
yeah, that's pretty great. I
bring
love
him in.
too. He was raised by his grandmother, whose name is Queen Silver. Like that's a fairy tale character.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
that's awesome. But we'll have a lot more. Luckett's going to go. I hope he has at least one story that he can share with us when he returns from Las Vegas. But we got more conversations with Liam Coen coming down the pike. We've got Jamarion Wilcox's decision on Friday.
Yep.
So, yeah, we'll have plenty to talk about. Enjoy your Super Wildcard Weekend. For Adam Luckett, I'm Nick Roush. Go Cats and go Kroger.